Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here representing Jason Blaha Strength and Fitness. Today I want to chat with you guys and gals about this really absurd, absolutely absurd theory that people throw out there that humans, that us, modern humans at some point, our species was ever a hyper-carnivore, or our ancestors were. But a quick reminder, if you guys will please click like down below, be greatly appreciated. If you're not subscribed or following, please do so. And if you'll be kind enough to drop a comment down below, I'd appreciate it. And I want to make a couple points clear. Number one, I am pro meat and pro dairy. So I am not coming at this from some strange vegan or plant-based perspective. I generally think we should be getting the majority of our protein from animal sources. Okay, so let's be clear, because all these carnivores and keto people are thinking I'm promoting something like that. I'm not, absolutely not. But we need to discuss facts. Number one. Number two, when you're talking about your ancestors, don't even bring the Inuits into it. That's a whole separate topic. And again, I've actually pointed that out in numerous videos that the Inuits are actually evidence against the benefit of that sort of diet. And if you had them in your history, you probably carry a gene to be resistant to ketosis like the Inuits do, by the way. So people are unaware of that. They don't go into ketosis easily. They have literally developed a gene to be resistant to it. Tells you a great deal about ketosis, doesn't it? All right, so that being said, we're talking about the rest of our ancestors, the other 99.999% of the population doesn't have Inuit in their background, so just stop. All right, so people try to pretend that our human ancestors, like our modern species, all right, that's not based on reality. That is coming from a study, a single study of a pre-human species, okay? So when you actually look at most carbon isotope testing, what we find is that Paleolithic humans, human meaning Homo sapien, what you think of that you would recognize as a person, not something that looks like a chimpanzee, right? Not something that looks like a chimp-human hybrid or a strange-looking orangutan. We're talking about something that you would recognize as a human, even though they might have been, hairy or whatever because they're cavemen. Modern human, Homo sapien. During the Paleolithic era, on average, depending upon seasons, where they look at the data, the region, it varies obviously, but it's around ballpark 20 to 25% animal calories, half of which is usually bugs, on average, and the other, 75 to 80% being plant calories. This is what's been found when it's been studied in our species. All right. There is no evidence of being hypercarnivores. Now, when you go look at the data that they're talking about, okay, when people say, well, but it was found in research that they were hypercarnivores and they ate a carnivore diet. You need a carnivore diet. The study they're looking at. Okay, first of all, the one they're looking at, the one study they're calling a hypercarnivore, was like 70% animal calories, around 30% plants. Okay? Well, wait a minute. That's a problem for the carnivores because they're like, well, we have a historical basis. It's been forever, humans were carnivores. And it's like, that is a carnivore. More than half of their food came from animals for that group, but that's not. And they're calling that a hypercarnivore, right? That is what they're describing. The majority of their calories, over 2/3, was coming from animals. Okay? There's about to be a problem with this data, though. But yeah, about a third of it, 30%, a little under a third, seem to have come from plants, 70% from animals. Here's the issue. Number one, it was in one region. Okay, this is a single study from a single region, and if I recall, it was in South America. Okay, number one. It's a very controversial study. It came out of Tel Aviv, a university in Tel Aviv. This isn't universities all around the world. This is a single data set from a single university that made headlines and has somehow become the rallying cry of the carnivores. Now, keep in mind, it is contested. Like this is not something that all the anthropologists are agreeing on. This is out of a single university. It's actually a fairly controversial finding. Okay, be aware of that. Right? Single region of pre-humans, not humans. What species was it? Anyone aware? It was Homo erectus. Okay, I want people to think about it. You're talking about humans. This is, we would describe it as a pre-human, right? You would not recognize this creature as a human being. Okay? They're like 4 feet tall. They look very similar to a chimpanzee, right? They have an average lifespan of about 30 years, and based upon the cranium and what we can tell, they didn't have a high enough intelligence to speak, right? This is a non-speech, ape-like species that lived to be about 30 years old. Okay, this is the creature that all these carnivores are basing this on. It's like, you really want to base your diet on the findings of a single pre-human species that lived to be 30, that was not intelligent enough or with enough brain development to speak. Like, this is your model. You're calling this a hypercarnivore, but they still ate 30% plants. Assuming that data is even correct, because then you also got to look, well, man, where were they getting that much meat? Because most of our ancestors didn't have access to that. They ate plants because they needed to. Like, you're not getting that much. But I guess in that particular region, that group, and they're small enough that they were able to, hunt with tools or whatever, enough stuff, and catch fish and other stuff to get it done. But we need to be clear, you're still talking 30% plants, and this is not even a human. Like, by what you're going to call a human. And yet this has created a whole myth that, oh yeah, the carnivore diet is not really, you have one data set of a pre-human species that still ate 30% plants, and we're going to call this carnivore, when all the other data on Paleolithic humans shows grains, tubers, plants, fruit. All this was like over 70% and closer to 80% generally of the total calorie intake. Just stop, people.